Hey everyone, and welcome back. I am going to be spending this video talking about my door assembly, more or less my door assembly. Um, I had hoped to have more of the process in this video, but by the time I had gone through editing and explaining my thought process and what I was doing with the doors, it was, coming up close to 30 minutes and I still had a lot left. So this video is going to be my door video. The next video, I will be doing more work on the case. Hopefully that won't take too long to get up to go along with this. Okay, I'm going to just pop in here. I've been working on my shelf building. I've been working on lining my doors, lining the box. But when I started thinking about my doors a bit more, I wanted to add extra support. There's these two sections here are the original areas of support that I had put in. So I have extended it with just whatever cutoffs I could find and wrapped it in the corner and wrapped it in that corner, added a bit of an extension for that edge that's going to go up here. This is currently just my mark about where I think that dowel will go. The dowel on the end of this, if this is, no, that's the other door. So when it's in, it'll go approximately there. I think I'm not going to drill it quite yet because I will want to make sure exactly where it is after I get my little next task underway. My thing was I didn't like it all broke up. I wanted a little bit of extra corner support. So I decided to build my own shelf platform bracket thing out of texture paste. It's not really going to be holding a lot of weight. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be holding a lot of weight. So I think it should work. I want to extend my lines a little higher and a little further out, just in case it gets covered with what I'm going to show you, because I have already done one door. Worked out the process more or less to be able to bring this to you today. Now, in my makeshiftisms, I need my little blocks, a block or two, I should say. You'll see. They work very well for what is about to happen. Now, I will show you. I did not use like a form or anything other than acrylic blocks that I grabbed when I realized I needed some flat, squarish, surfacey things. Can also use things that I can't find. A square. Let me get things though also to clean up with. All right, so still soft enough to work with. I'm able to smooth it out. Okay. So already dirty somehow. Somehow I'm already dirty. This is what I did when I decided this would be a good idea. I globbed on my texture paste. It started a rough process of smoothing out my gaps, building it up along the sides, making it look like one solid formation. And when it came time to work on my corner, I really pushed it down fairly firmly as I built it up to try to hopefully make sure I didn't have air pockets in there. Because I end up hand forming a curve in there. That's how it starts anyhow. And now you will see exactly what my makeshift forms were for, because I can push it in there and square it up with my acrylic block holding one end, one edge of the texture paste. It gives me something solid, really very solid, to push up against when it comes to creating my taper. If that makes sense. If that makes sense. I can, because this palette knife has a 90-degree corner here, I can keep one edge against my acrylic block so that it keeps it mostly squared along the surface. It keeps it squared to smooth out that surface. I'll get there eventually. I know what I'm trying to say almost. I almost know. And this is where a second acrylic block or acrylic square or something flat and squarish comes in, so I can do that. Hold it in place just a second or two. It gives me, at least gives me, a line to work within. And then, if necessary, like it is now, I can hopefully, oh, I know, wait. I have a different thing. I have this blade's not even sharp anymore, but I keep it around because it's handy. It's handy in times like this. So, I can fit it in here and smooth that out, because it refuses to smooth out on one side. Like that. And then I can slide these back out. So that's the basis of my little hand-formed shelf bracket. Do this bottom one up real quick. Well, at least real quick as far as you are concerned while watching this, because it probably won't be real quick, but at least with the bottom one, it's a little bit easier to form just because I only have to keep it from falling off the bottom. If that makes sense. If that's making sense. So, because it's kind of thick in the corners, I do let it sit for a couple days to make sure that it is all the way dry in there. Check it periodically, make sure that it's staying at least relatively squared up. So here is the first door, the one I did before, not the one I just did to show you. After all of that texture paste shelf brackety build is dry, I started working on adding back in the velvet. So now because I have that extra space being taken up, that extra space that needs to be accounted for, however you might want to think about that. I cut slits in to the large piece, since that's what I'm working on, that line up with my bracket builds. There we go. I'll get there. I'll get the words eventually. They line up with my bracket builds. Now, more or less, all I really did is mark the top, and in this case, just the bottom, and kind of eyeball centered for my cut, and cut out a slit that doesn't go all the way to the end, because it doesn't really need to go all the way to the end. But because it needs to be worked around these, and I want to make it as smooth as possible, I decided to work on it in segments. My first segment was the top. This is this door here. So I started gluing about, I don't know, I think it's about to there or so. I didn't go all the way down because this needs to be worked a bit. So that's all there is to it. So I will finish the velvet on this one. I will do the same technique for the short side. And when the other door that I just put all that texture paste is dry, when all that texture paste I just did is dry, I will do the same thing. Almost. Actually, I won't. I don't want to try to drill through velvet, I don't think. So after I get the velvet in, that's why I did that. I remember now. After I get the velvet in, the large velvet in, and I have it wrapped as tight as I can get it, and I'm able to know exactly where my shelf will line up, exactly how high it will be, exactly how to get it level. I will mark out my dowel where it goes so that I can not put a deep hole. It doesn't need to go all the way in, just enough to catch the tip of this dowel. They are all maybe, well, depending on, well, let me get it straight. If it's sitting straight, like overgrown popsicle sticks aren't particularly sturdy, but they're serving their purpose. It's out just a hair more. It doesn't need to be a deep hole, just enough to catch the end. Then I will glue it in, possibly glue eyelets into the holes just for decorative purposes after the velvet's in. Maybe I'll come back and talk about that. Maybe. I'll work it out on this door, get the velvet started on the second one, and then probably come back and give a better explanation of what I'm thinking. This door is finished. This is just what I'm kind of going to work with to show you. And it doesn't really matter to me about the edges having the excess glue, because as I had said earlier, at some point in time, there's going to be bottles, or even on the back row, just for a little bit of depth looking, some resin bottles. So it's going to get covered. It's not going to be seen in any way, shape, or form. It will all work out once those shelves get filled. Now, as I was wrapping my velvet back onto my door, and I'd had the little slits in there to go around the my texture paste shelf supports. I realized, well, that was an unnecessary step. This one's a little wonky. I do have a few ideas of kind of blending, but I haven't got there yet. I'm just trying to get my pieces attached. I have added the corners. I had just enough corners basically to corner all the corners I wanted to corner, but I haven't put my nails in yet. So I have door corners. When I get to the box, you will see the rest of the corners there. This is just going to be what I worked out, finally worked out for my velvet. I have my holes drilled in to here already. I need to clean up one edge. I don't really worry about the outer edge at this point. I'm going to clean up the inner edge and the top for right now real quick. Now, what I figured out after I had started this. I don't need to necessarily wrap these. I really don't need to wrap these because the top gets covered by a shelf. And so I am going to section off, if that makes sense, section off. Do this part down to the top of the shelf. Like this. Figure out where the top of the shelf is. Like so. And I'm going to cut it there. Most of the way. Well, actually I can cut it across-ish. I do try to leave this end mostly solid. It's really a matter of just trying to cover up that end. But like I said, I swear, I kind of sort of almost know exactly what I might be doing. So I'm going to hand cut it just to make sure I stop and turn. There. Yeah. You with me here, sorta? Actually, I will just cut that off. I know what to do. So this is just going to allow a little bit more wiggle room, right? Like to make sure I can at least make it to the bottom of the door. Because wrapping, if I tried to wrap, it would have also shortened what I had to work with. But again, I ended up with a solution for that. I really did. So let me get this started. Really not a big lengthy process so much gluing these in. I just wanted to tell you that I eventually found a much easier way to accomplish it than what I had started with. So that's the basic process for the upper shelf area. Now, when it comes to this is how this goes. I am just going to line up my fabric at the top edge of my texture paste shelf support. Because, again, once that shelf's in, that's not really going to be a problem, is it? No, no, it's not. This is where it gets wonky in the corners because I do have a built up curve in there, but it's really not a big deal. A little extra trimming is all that's really necessary. I'm just going to mark, this is, a very water soluble pencil, so it will just wipe right off this velvet. Just giving myself a starter mark. It's mostly a starter mark right now. To see exactly how much or how far in I will have to go. In order to do that. And see, that's where it gets wonky because I do end up having to come in and I will cover this, but I will get there. I will get there. So on this, I'm going to work a little slower, a little bit at a time. That way I can make sure that I do get a good hold around there. So I'm only going to work about halfway down right now. And I don't want to cut this one yet because I want to make sure that it will make it down to here after I'm done wrapping. But it is not easy, or it's not difficult to cut it once it's in place, because then, there it is, then I could just use something like this to hold against there and kind of do that. I'll show you that though. If you're wondering why I'm not cutting this section out the way I did that one. This one is just a rectangle. The first one, not so many problems with that first one. I am just going to work my way across with these clips to hold it to this bottom edge. Well, I make sure it's all fit and snug and what have you. So that's how I'm going to leave it like this. I want this upper area of glue to dry so that this can be so I will know, I shouldn't say so it can be, so I know that it will not slip around on me when I start working my way around the next level. But that's the process. Okay, all the way down. I will trim off up here when I get there. Same process I will do on the inner side of the door. Only difference being is I will just use my razor to kind of score where those eyelets are going to go in. All right, so I'm going to let this sit here and dry. I will need to kind of find a finishing piece for that. And I think maybe I can use this, which is also what I used. I cut a strip to cover here, since this one at least wasn't quite wide enough to cover the shelf support. So I cut a strip off of this piece of what I now know is spare velvet. So let me just explain where that spare velvet came from. That spare velvet would have been here. Well, now before I cut off, it was what would have covered this door, like so. And because it's at one point in time, this was a solid box, it was quite obviously going to be about an inch or so too short to cover all the way across. You see what I mean? With it opening up, it was now going to be too short. It was either the center was going to stick out or the edges were going to stick out. And I didn't want either one of those to happen. So, spare velvet. That does, however, leave me with a small predicament of finishing up this. Now, I've thought about a few things. It can't be very thick. Obviously, it can't be very thick because it needs to close. But before I get there, I said I would talk about my other corners. I added corners here to the top. I have corners on all 4 of the bottom. Now you're thinking, how did you get those corners when you only have a very small ledge here and you need doors to open? I used these. They are straight cuts. They actually work much better on metal than they do on wood because that's what they were made for. So, on the bottom ones, the front bottom ones, you can see I trimmed off the upper leg of that corner so it would still open. And then when it closes, it just almost looks like it was there. This one is actually a little more pieced together because I had actually trimmed this first and trimmed it higher. And then I thought of just wrapping it and putting and just making it so that it was this without that third leg. And then I changed my mind to keep it solid and just add it to the door front. So I kind of glued it back together. You can see there. It's a hot mess, but I will fix it up with, my aging process when I get there. And then for the top of this panel, it was the same general idea, just a different leg getting removed. So I have this trimmed down, and then I just added that third leg there. So when it's closed, it still has that continuation. And I can show you now, since I do have one door together, how that's going to look when it's, together. A little something like that. All right, I'm trying to catch up. It's a little mishmashed bit here, explaining my doors, explaining the corners. And that's just because I work on it, set something off to dry, like this, and go find something else that needs parts added for dry time. So there you have it. My mostly door video. In the next video, I will talk more about putting the shelves into the box. I will work on the little flap on that on the bottom of this box, and I will just see how long that one is. There might be more, there might be less. Like I said at the beginning, I had hoped to get everything into this video, but if I tried that, I was really thinking it was going to at least end up being an hour if just this door process was coming out almost half an hour. So thank you for hanging with me today, and I will see you again in the next video.